Picture this. It's late at night, you're lounging on your couch, scrolling through your favorite online store. You spot a pair of shoes you absolutely love. You pick your size, you click Add to Cart, and you navigate over to the checkout page. Maybe you even go as far as typing in your shipping address, you see that $15 delivery fee, and then you just close the tab. You walk away. Come on, we've all done it. In fact, we do it all the time. But have you ever stopped to wonder why? Today's explainer turns this everyday digital habit into a massive psychological mystery scene. So let's dive right in. 70%. Think about that for a second. An astonishing 70% of all online shopping carts are abandoned before purchase. 7 out of 10 times a consumer signals intent to buy something by tossing it into their virtual cart, they end up just leaving it behind. This isn't just some glitch in the matrix, and it's definitely not just a few people getting distracted by a phone call. We are looking at a behavioral epidemic in the world of e-commerce. And those abandoned carts, they aren't just digital ghosts hanging out in cyberspace. They have a massive real-world impact. We're talking about an estimated $18 billion in lost sales globally in 2025 alone. 18 billion. That's billion with a B. To put that into perspective, that is a staggering economic consequence for online retailers. It makes this cart abandonment issue one of the most expensive psychological puzzles in the modern business world. So, I want to turn the mirror on us for a second. Why do we leave? What exactly drives you and me to carefully curate this perfect selection of products, experience that little rush of clicking add to cart, and then completely abandon the mission? For years, the industry just assumed it was bad website design or annoying technical glitches. But the truth? The truth is actually rooted entirely in the wild complexities of the human mind. To crack this case, we're looking at some truly fascinating 2025 research out of Let University by Wajiha Adnan. This master's thesis finally moves past those basic technical excuses. By using in-depth, qualitative interviews with shoppers from all around the globe, it manages to decode the complex consumer psychology behind why we walk away from the digital checkout counter. Section 1, the dopamine of digital shopping. What happens in our brains when we add something to our cart is essentially an intense tug-of-war between two very different sides of our emotional state. On one side, you've got the impulsive shopper. This part of your brain is chasing a hedonic thrill, a quick dopamine rush from the sheer novelty and aesthetic appeal of a shiny new item. But almost instantly, the rational accountant steps into the ring. This is the side of your brain that starts projecting into the future. It's anticipating post-purchase guilt, worrying about your budget, and actively questioning if you really need the item. It's literally a dual processing battle playing out in real time. In the psychology world, they call this emotional ambivalence. It's the concurrent existence of totally contradictory thoughts and emotions. Imagine your excitement crashing headfirst into a wall of financial anxiety. That collision creates a state of unbearable mental tension. So here's the crucial part. When we feel this profound hesitation, we do the most psychologically efficient thing possible. We just abandon the cart to protect our mental balance and dodge that future regret. Let's humanize this data a bit with a direct quote from the study. Participant P10 hit the nail on the head, telling researchers, "It gives a nice dopamine boost when I fill my cart, but why am I spending so much?" I mean, doesn't that just brilliantly capture the feeling? We often use the digital shopping cart merely for a temporary mood lift. It's performative. We're getting the high of shopping without taking on any of the actual financial risk. Moving on to Section 2, the paralysis of choice. But, okay, what happens when we actually do want to buy something, but the internet gets in its own way? We hit what's known as decision fatigue. This is that intense mental exhaustion that comes from making multiple choices, which directly impairs your ability to finalize a purchase. Think about it. You're not just buying a simple coffee maker anymore. You're scrolling through 50 different variants, comparing specs, reading hundreds of wildly conflicting reviews, checking different shipping prices. By the time you reach the checkout, your cognitive battery is just completely dead. I think we can all relate to participant P6 here, who told the researcher, "It's a bit too much, so I close the tab and just forget about it." Abandonment in this scenario isn't about not wanting the product at all. It's a desperate, necessary retreat from sensory and informational overload. Your brain just throws its hands up and says, "I literally cannot process any more data today. Let's just exit." Before you even see a checkout screen, you're forced to run through this exhausting mental gymnastics routine called the comparison cycle. You kick off with exploration and evaluation, scanning, comparing tabs. Then you move to anticipation, visualizing if this item actually fits into your daily life. Next comes moral accounting, asking yourself if this is a fair price and if you truly, honestly need it. By the time you reach that final step, execution or abandonment, you are mentally drained. No wonder we just click the little X and bail.
Which brings us to Section 3, the trust and risk equation.
So, if you manage to survive the dopamine crash and the decision fatigue, you run straight into the deep-seated fears of the digital landscape. In a world full of sophisticated scams, fake reviews, and stolen data, every checkout is essentially a leap of faith. Out of the 10 global participants interviewed in the study, the credibility gap, which is basically having doubts about quality or delivery, impacted all 10 of them at a high level. Right below that, monetary caution. Fears over inflation and whether you can actually afford it is at a 9. Trust isn't just some nice bonus feature. It is the absolute foundation of the whole transaction. If the perceived risk outweighs the perceived trust, that cart is getting abandoned immediately. Participant P2 makes this incredibly clear. They said, I only buy through certain platforms, my card information is not going to be stolen, or I know if they have a good return policy. Trust acts as the ultimate psychological bridge here. If a retailer doesn't clearly signal a pain-free return policy or rock-solid security, your perceived behavioral control just plummets. The risk feels way too high, and the cart gets left behind. In earning that trust, it is brutal, largely because of something called the asymmetric trust repair rule. Essentially, it's a negativity bias. One single bad past experience, like receiving a counterfeit product or fighting for weeks to get a refund, permanently alters your risk tolerance. Even if a website has 10 amazing, great features, that one lingering memory of a terrible online shopping experience makes you hypervigilant. And that hypervigilance often leads to, you guessed it, cart abandonment. Section 4. Why consumers resist marketers. So what happens when websites actively try to stop us from leaving with all those flashing pop-ups and countdown timers? Well, it triggers something called psychological reactance. This is our hardwired human instinct to experience a really unfavorable reaction when we feel someone is trying to limit our freedom of choice. When an e-commerce site throws aggressive pop-ups at you or uses fake scarcity to pressure you into buying right now, it undermines your autonomy. You don't feel helped, you feel manipulated. And modern consumers are incredibly savvy. We see right through it. Participant P10 caught them completely red-handed, saying, there's only 7 of these left, I know it's a lie, I would rather have them not do these kinds of things. When a website uses artificial urgency, shopping transforms from this enjoyable search for goods into a literal battle of micro-resistance against the retailer. This leads us to a pretty profound realization. Closing the tab isn't always laziness, and it's not always forgetfulness. Often, cart abandonment is an active, moral choice. It's a form of defiance to regain your autonomy. By walking away, the shopper is taking the power back from the pushy marketer. They are essentially saying, nope, you can't trick me into buying this. Finally, Section 5, decoding the abandoned cart. To bring this entire investigation to its ultimate conclusion, we need a complete paradigm shift when it comes to this $18 billion mystery. The e-commerce industry views an abandoned cart as a failed transaction. But for the consumer, it's actually a successful execution of self-control. It is a vital tool for emotional regulation, allowing us to manage our impulses. And in today's economy, it's a highly strategic, totally rational response to inflation and strict budget limits. The abandoned cart is actually a triumph of human rationality over digital impulse. Ultimately, we don't just shop for products, we shop for the fantasy, and then we walk away to protect our reality. We use digital window shopping to experience the joy of ownership, to imagine a brand new version of ourselves without ever having to suffer the actual financial consequences. When you think about it, it's a perfectly balanced psychological mechanism. Which leaves us with this final provocative thought. The next time you're lying on the couch, scrolling through a store, hitting add to cart, and then quietly closing the tab, who really won? The retailer who lost the sale or you, the master of your own digital psychology? Keep that in mind next time you shop online. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.